Now today's project, we're playing with this electric winch. We just got the big winch done. We'll have a little bit more on that later, but the electric winch we have in this headache rack, and we have it wired up to go through the gin poles next to the big winch, and that way we can use it as a, you know, to pull trucks on a trailer or pull things onto the bed, that kind of stuff. We've been using it with a battery on sitting on the bed and some vice grips, but got these Anderson plugs, and we're going to use these to create a couple of, you know, plug-in points. The winch is mounted up here with a receiver hitch, so we're going to take these little brackets I made, and we're going to weld a plug in here, and we're also going to weld a plug in for an Anderson right here in the front, so that way if we have the winch to use in the front, just plop, plug it in, and we're good to go. We're using some of this 1/0 and 2/0 welding cable that I had that had several bad spots, so it's some old abandoned cable, but we were able to get usable links cutting the bad spots out. I kind of got started on this the other day thinking wiring is boring and mundane, and I did not once I got into it, I kind of decided y'all might want to see at least how this is doing. I mean, you know, snaking wires in the frame is not a big deal, but one of the things that I kind of liked about how this is going to be set up is I use this military hitch, this military terminal, because of the bolt points on each side, and I tie it into the Ford harness here and made a little jumper to go to this solenoid, and this is a continuous duty solenoid, so I'll be able to come off of one of the posts with a low voltage switch from a panel in the cab and activate this. And what's good about this is that this heavy gauge wire is not going to be hot all the time. When you want to use the winch, you'll flip on your switch on the dash, and that solenoid will energize this. You can use it, and when you're not using the winch, you can power it down, so that way if something gets chafed or rubbed, you don't end up with a big short. So I thought y'all might find that kind of interesting, and I'm going to just incorporate that into a little switch bank I'm already building in the truck, with some other switches that we're using for the LED lights and stuff. So we're just going to use a blank switch that we're not using for that. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to make a jumper. Just so y'all know, what I'm doing here is I'm running the hots from the battery to the continuous duty solenoid. It comes to the front bumper, and I don't know if you can see that little brass box down there. That's a three-way. It's got one leg coming this way and two going the other way. So that's how I'm splitting one leg here, and the second leg is going all the way to the back. So what I'm going to do for the grounds is I'm going to tie in some 2/0 grounds to the frame and use the frame as a ground. What you have to be careful of on this is on the Fords, you've got this battery ground that goes to the passenger side, the harmonic balancer, and the other one on the other side goes to the opposite side, the harmonic balancer. But the frame ground, and I can't get in there to show you, is only like an 8 gauge. So instead of having something this big, you're going to have something similar to this. So you don't want that winch grounding through that. So I'm going to make a ground cable that's going to come from, it's going to bolt on where this one does onto the engine block and jump over to the frame, and it's going to beef up the frame ground from 8 gauge to a 2/0, and that way we can use the frame as the ground, and we don't have to run another mile of this heavy gauge wire, because not only is this wire a pain in the butt, but it's also expensive. I mean, we've got leftover wire, but we also have other projects we can use it on. So we're going to get the welder out. We're going to tack these little brackets I made on. All these are is just a little standoff bracket, because all this iron on this truck is heavy, you know, 1/4 inch, and I don't want to be drilling and tapping for little bitty screws like this. So I just went ahead and made these little clips. So I have 3 of them, one each for these 2 Andersons, one here and one in the front bumper, and one has the little brass 3-way block on it. And that little 3-way block is just, you know, Allen head set screws crimping the wire on there. I might get a shot of it when we get to welding it. All right, let's get into it. Alright guys, so this is show you how we're doing this hydraulic crimper. It's a pretty handy little tool. We're gonna take this, I'm gonna slide them in there, and it just pumps up. Make sure you keep your wire seated in there good. And I just pump till she don't go. And then bleed her off. So that's how we're doing our crimps. I may put some heat shrink on this. We'll see how that ends up looking when we're making our ground wires. So I'm gonna make these and show you how we're cutting them and stuff. Alright, so let's see, I think it was the 25s. So you got to change these jaws out to fit whatever size crimps you're using. And I think these were the Anderson crimps. Alright, so again, just holding this so that it'll stay orientated the right way. Alright, that's that. I got a little trimming. This is a ground. It's not that critical, but gotta find some pliers to trim it. So we'll get this popped in. I'll show you all in a minute. Alright. Now on these Anderson plugs, you got some bolts in here. We're going to bolt them up, and I'll pop this one in on the front. Alright, I was fighting this thing and got it clipped in before I realized I didn't show y'all, so I have to show y'all one on the back. But this is what we're doing. That's the little cover, and that's how it's going to sit on the front bumper. Just uncover it and stab the winch in, and we'll show y'all on the back what we're doing. So I've got a blank plug right here that we're going to tighten these up on, and this will be a hot, and we're going to make a ground going to the frame. So I'll show you how those go in when we do that. Right now I'm just going to tighten this up, and I'll come back to you when we get in a little further. I have to drill it. Let's see if this will hold still, but probably not. No, I can see it ain't gonna work now. Damn it. Well, it's a miracle. I did not think that was going to drill trying to clamp it on there. I'll bring y'all back around here. Alright, that turned into a quick fix. We got a little extra, it was just enough cable for it to come on the top. It's still going to have to bend a little bit, but that ought to get it. I need to find a place to clamp this thing everywhere I go. Oh, going the wrong way. Trying to film in one hand and ratchet in the other, and it ain't working. Alright, y'all get the idea. I'm gonna run this on up. Alright, some more one arm camera wiggling. So we got the harmonic balancer here, and on the driver's side you can see that red cable right there. That's the battery cable coming down in that loom, and there's a ground clamp part of that battery harness. And so we're going to tie a frame ground in right there. Let me see if I can get my arm back up in here. Ay, ay, ay. All right. All right. We're going to check our diameter, see if we need to drill that, but that's where the ground goes right up to the battery on the driver's side. You also have one kind of hiding behind this hose right here. You can see this ground wire right here, and right up in there you should be able to see it. So you have one on both sides. That's your negatives from each side of the battery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little jumper wire, probably come down to this cross member right here and get into one of these bolt holes, and we'll shine that up, and that'll give us a frame ground coming from the back, so we're not trying to ground from or through this little wire right here. That's a jumper that goes from this ground to the frame, and I don't know what that is, maybe 8 gauge. We don't want to run the winch juice through that, so we're gonna make a big jumper to take that one's place, and we may even just go right to that bolt. I'm gonna have to see if I can get to it from the top, and we'll put that frame ground right on there too. All right, that fits. So we're good there. We can crimp this on, and then we'll measure a length and find where we're going to go to from there. Alrighty, we're gonna make a little tab. I can't find a good spot close enough to get to, so I think we're gonna make a little tab and weld it on. Let's see, might drill better through this side. Let's see. before we cut this, I'm gonna shine this up a little bit. Alright, we'll make a crimp while we let that cool off. Alright guys, so I welded a little tab on there. I'll show y'all in a minute. There's no way to get me, y'all, and the camera and the welder and all that under there. I'm gonna make this is where I'm gonna make my cut, and then I put this little mark here because that's where we're gonna want the flat surface for it to bolt up on there. We're gonna double check that before we crimp it, but we'll get this cleaned up. Hold your ears. I have to extend my mark to get my marker. All right, let's get this one done. That's it. All right, so we get this cut. I have to cut a little more, I think. Well, maybe not. Yeah, I think that'll work. Yeah. Oh, I'll get my drill. Where'd my drill go to? Alright, well, here's our finished product. This is our Anderson plug. Just a little pull, and you can move that winch anywhere you want. It just goes right up here to this winch. You're going to see in another upcoming video why we have this electric winch rigged up in this particular fashion. And then, of course, we had, let me walk around. We wanted one in the front, of course. So we put an Anderson right here. Could do it for jumper cables too. And if y'all, the more astute y'all may have noticed that we went and swapped from soldering to, from crimping to soldering. So I didn't catch this, but one of the viewers, a guy named Ed from Texas, a friend of mine, is a welder, and he pointed it out to me, and that when you have copper that was that dark. When I would cut them and strip them, I was actually wire wheeling some of the carbon and buildup on the off of the copper. And he was telling me, man, when they get that burnt, they've been so hot, there's hundreds and hundreds of broken wires in there, and you're never going to get a good amperage draw through that. So we had another batch of old welding leads, and we ended up swapping all of them out to ones that when you strip the casing on them, there's very little dark or no dark. And you know, so those were like more physical damage, is why they replaced them than not. You know, I mean, they're going to either be overheated or they're going to have cuts and scrapes and abrasions, and that's why they get retired. So if you strip some copper, if you're buying some welding leads to do some heavy wiring like this, and you see, strip an inch or two back, and if it's all dark, man, be careful with that. So again, I told y'all we had a continuous duty solenoid, so this is not hot all the time. Let me so we did a switch bank, and we've got some lights here and a light here on this little switch here, a couple of blanks, and then when I want it, I have key on power. When I energize this one, it activates the solenoid and powers up all of these Anderson cables. And so that way, when the truck is parked, keys off, all of that's dead. We don't have high voltage going everywhere that could, you know, short out and cause a problem. So that's how we got this thing done. I'm debating on whether I want to run one more and put it back here by the trailer hitch. It would be good to have high power cables that could hook up to the trailer, but I think we're going to do a battery on the trailer when we get around to that. We'll jump off that bridge when we get to it. So that's wiring on the electric winch on this truck so far, and other than that, that's how we're going to do it for now. So any of you guys have any questions or comments, hit us up in the comment section. Other than that, we're going to move on to the next project, so we'll see y'all on the next one.